Hey guys, just jumping in here to do a super quick intro. Don't worry about the lighting. The rest of the video is going to be during daylight. And I wanted to do a second video this week because I hit 4,000 subscribers, which is super amazing to me. To me, that's a lot because, it's just amazing that so many of you guys, want to join me for my artistic journey and, follow me along. And I appreciate each and every one of you. So stay tuned and we're going to get into this Caran D'Ache Neocolor II video. That was the second most requested video from the poll I did. So as a thank you, I'm going to go ahead and put that out this week. Okay, thanks. So here's my set. I have the 40 color set and I've had these for quite a while. And as you can see, they've gotten, a lot of good use, but at the same time, plenty left. And I do have a white. So the white was the original one that came in this set, and then I had bought this beige, which if you can see, I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it's not really a beige, it's more of a, I would call it a warm gray. So this is a light gray. Yeah, this is light gray, this is dark gray, and I would say the beige is a warm dark gray. So it used to be a white that was here. I just keep it over here, and then over here I keep another white. This is the Neocolor I. So that's different because these ones are not water soluble, whereas these ones are. So first things first, are these light fast? Well, some of them are, pretty light fast, and then other ones are not as light fast. And unfortunately on the crayon itself, like this one I haven't peeled yet, if you can see there, it does not have any light fastness information. However, I did find some light fastness information on their website, but it's a bit out of date for some colors that I think are no longer available maybe, and then it doesn't include all the colors, but you kind of get an idea. So for those of you who are interested in that, I will include a link down below. Now, in terms of whether I would use these for works that I would sell that I want to last a long time, I would say if I was going to use it for works that I would sell, I would probably go on the website and pick out the ones that are, the most light fast, and maybe use those and not use the other ones. However, I've been using these only in my sketchbooks, so it has been a non-issue. Now, in terms of how these look, this is some of them swatched out on black paper. As you can see, the top row is Neocolor II's, and then this is Neocolor I. So that's how they look swatched out on black paper. This is a Strathmore mixed media sketchbook, which is basically hot press 100% cotton watercolor paper, in my opinion. And I'm going to use the back of it for some swatching. So let's set these a little bit to the side. So they have the consistency of a very creamy pencil, a waxy, very waxy, creamy pencil, which makes sense because these are wax water soluble pastels. That's what they're considered to be. Okay. I would equate these, if you guys have the German drawing pencils, they're also very soft and creamy, and this kind of reminds me of that, except a little bit softer. So these are a mix of a colored pencil and a pastel. Now let's do some tests of what you can do with these guys, which I think is where they really shine and where the fun really starts. So the first thing is you can use them dry onto dry paper, which is basically what we just did here. The other thing is you can use them dry into wet paper. So if you have some wet paper you've been working with, so we'll wet the paper. And I like this paper because it takes dry and water media really well. That's how they look. See, they spread right away because they're water soluble. So if the wetter the paper, obviously, the more spread you get. Okay, so that's dry into wet. Now let's try a different color. I'm gonna use this one, and we're gonna do wet into dry. So I'm tipping the point into water briefly, and then I get a very sort of blended line, and then it quickly, as you use up the watered down tip, then it turns dry again and you get the regular. Now I'm going to dip the point in a little bit longer than the last time. So let's give it a few more seconds. Bear with me. And I don't want to fast forward this part because I want you guys to know exactly how long I'm dipping it in for. Okay, this time I dipped it in longer, so it's very soft over here. But then it quickly turns into dry again. Okay, and then the other option we have is wet into wet. So we'll have wet paper, okay, and wet crayon. I'm tipping the point in again. And then you get a lot more spread, and the wet look sort of lasts a lot longer and doesn't dry out as much because the paper itself is wet. Okay, so that's the first option. Then another option is using it basically as a colored pencil, which is kind of what we did here. Here we just used it as a colored pencil. However, where these really shine is you can break them in half, or break off little pieces of them, and then it's easier to take them with you if you want to travel with them. But then you can also very quickly cover much larger areas. So if you're doing your sketchbook and you have a quick sketch idea, but you don't want to spend a lot of time on it because it's not a finished piece, it's just a sketchbook, then this is a great way to cover a large area. It's also a great way to cover a large area in a coloring book, because here you can quickly cover a large area without using them wet, which for some coloring books you don't want to use any kind of wet media on their paper because it's not the best. So this is a great way to cover a lot of space. Now you can also do this with soft pastels and oil pastels. However, oil pastels never dry, and they're very, they kind of spread onto other pages very easily. And soft pastels kind of don't stick to some paper as well, whereas these stick perfectly to the paper. And when I've had sketchbooks where I've drawn with Neocolor II on both sides, usually I will use a protective paper in between them, but even when I don't, I found that they don't really spread onto each other that much, not nearly as much as you would see with oil pastels. And that's kind of the main advantage to me with these for using them in sketchbooks over oil pastels. And that's why I mostly use them and not as much with oil pastels. Now, can you get a fine point tip with them? Well, yes, this one is not even sharpened right now, but you can certainly sharpen it in a regular sharpener basically, or like a slightly wider hole sharpener, and get a very fine point. However, because they're so soft, the point doesn't last that long, so I find that it's kind of a waste. If I want fine details, fine point, I'll just use my colored pencils in combination with these. I don't sharpen these because I don't want to waste them, and I like using them nice and thick. That works perfectly fine for me. I have sharpened a couple of them before, and then what you can do is when you're sharpening, hold it over something, and then collect the shavings and put them into a watercolor pan, and you can actually make watercolor pans out of these. I've seen people do it, I've done it myself, and you can either do that with single colors, or if you're sharpening multiple colors, you can combine them and get new colors. And you can make a whole watercolor palette with just these, and basically take them traveling easier that way. I haven't tried this, but I have heard that if you take them to the beach or somewhere very hot, there's a potential for them to melt because they're made out of wax. So you want to be a little bit mindful when you're traveling with these about where you're going and how you're storing them. Another way that I love using them is a wax pastel, and that's because you can get a really nice blended look with them. And then you can use either your finger or any other blending utensil, like a blending stuff. So and these then blend like an oil pastel. So for example, if I wanted to create kind of a model look, I could put a couple of them together and get a very nice blend like that. See that? And I just usually just do it with my finger. And then it's basically like working with a very hard oil pastel. They're not nearly as smooth and creamy as some oil pastels, but they do have similar behavior. So then it's kind of like working with an oil pastel. Okay, so this is what we have so far. So you can use it as a watercolor, which I've kind of already demonstrated. We got a watercolor effect, but here are some other ones where I'm going to use a dry tip, and I'm going to go in with my brush and just simply brush the tip, and then I get a watercolor. If I want to make it a little bit easier, I'll wet the tip, wet the brush, and then it's even easier to oh, and I even got like a little bit of a spray of paint right there. So you get a really pretty color. They work just like watercolors. So this is using it as a watercolor. Another option for using it as a watercolor is I wet it and then I put it here. And then I simply go in with my brush and pick it up and do that. Another option is I take a dry one and apply dry color. Okay, and I scribble it onto my porcelain palette, go in with the wet brush and pick up the color. Pick up the color, okay. Caran D'Ache, the brand that makes the Neo pastels, also sells a plastic palette that you can use specifically for this purpose. I think it's got a little bit of a texture to it. I don't personally have that palette, but it's supposed to be for you to put the colors down, and then you can, you know, dilute them with water and use them as a watercolor. So that's as a watercolor, so you can do it from a tip, from the palette, and I used a porcelain palette, but you can use whatever. This is actually a soap dish from the dollar store. And so that's a nice little porcelain palette that's very small, and it was $1. And the other option is to use it as a watercolor directly from paper. So here I'm applying it very lightly, and here I'll apply it hard, so you can see what happens if I use it light versus hard. So, and you can use it like that, okay. So the light layer diluted pretty well. Let's see how the hard one dilutes. Oh, the hard one diluted even better. See, it just works really well. So that's what we have. And you can't really see the lines underneath. However, if I wanted a more painterly effect where you can see the lines underneath, let's say I wanted like a scribble effect, then you can just kind of dilute it just a little bit and then leave it at that. So for example, like this, see, you still get like this really nice color over top, but you can still see the marks underneath. See, look at how pretty that looks. Now, if I wanted to get rid of the lines, all I have to do is scrub a little bit, and even the harder edges ones, like that were over here, poof, gone, completely gone. So it really depends what effect you want, and that's one of the reasons I love the Neocolor II, especially for mixed media and sketchbook work, is that they're very versatile. You can get a lot of different, you know, the things that you can do with them, which makes them more versatile than most other mediums, and they're perfect for mixed medium. Because the next phase, we're gonna try them with other mediums and see what happens. Another idea is to use them like as an under sketching for a painting. And I'm not sure I need to really demonstrate that. Basically, the idea here is you take really any color. It can be red, it can be a darker color, it can be a lighter color, and you sketch out, you know, your basic sketch or whatever, and then let's say a house, right? And then you paint over it. And so it's basically you're then using them as you would, let's say, a watercolor pencil as an under sketching, because then when you're painting over it with other paints, it will cover it and then you won't really see it, but some of the color might blend in a little bit to create a little bit more interest and variety. So now we're going to get into using it with other mediums. So let's try it under oil pastel. Let's lay down a little layer. And again, I'm showing you guys two different options. One is very light and one is kind of dark. The oil pastels I have are these Budget Gallery Mungio pastels. So even though they're not the most expensive, they're actually a very good deal. They're really good quality. I love them. So, and oil pastel will layer over them. For example, you can see that it goes over very well, and it goes over just fine the lighter area and even the thick area that completely covers the paper. But it doesn't matter because the oil pastel will still stick to it no matter where you go. Let's try the white so you can really see it. And here you have white and it kind of blends in with the color underneath. So you get a sort of like a mottled kind of white effect. It's like a purpley white. So it comes out to be a really pretty color actually. Okay, so here we used oil pastels over them because oil pastels will go over pretty much anything. Other things won't go over this as well. So I would not necessarily use them as a bottom layer for things, unless you're working with oil pastels. Then they work just fine as a bottom layer, or as an underpainting type of thing. I would use these more as an oil pastel that you want to put over other things because they are so creamy and they'll go well over pretty much everything. But most things don't go over them that well. But to some degree though, you can. I can demonstrate again with, here's a hard line and then here's a soft line. Okay, and then we can kind of see. Here I have two Prismacolor pencils, which are known to be very soft. They're also wax-based pencil. So as you can see, it does not go over the thick area. You can kind of see it there, but it loses, it's not really pink. Now, will it go over the lighter area? Yes. If I press hard, it will. It will not go over this area though, okay? So that's why I wouldn't want to use them as a bottom layer for pencils. Even here you can see it kind of skips over the, see, over here it goes fine. So if you have them as a layer that's underneath as a very light layer, then it works fine. Now if you have them as a wet layer, then they will, if you wet them, then pencil will go over it. So if you use them as a watercolor, then pencil will go over it fine. And when it dries, I'll show you guys. So I would use them as a layer that goes over things. So let's try colored pencil. And you can see I'm putting down a hard layer of colored pencil. Let's pick a, it has zero problem going over a hard layer. Okay, and then let's try another color that is lighter but is still visible. There we go. And let's try this white. So you can't see, here the white does kind of blend in with the underneath layer. Again, that makes for a pretty effect actually. So that's why this white has been worn down, because it's actually great as a blending pastel. So I use it for blending a lot, and that's why it's kind of the most used of the entire set. So it goes over colored pencil really well. Okay, That's a lot of stuff. I'm just giving you guys a little preview of all the stuff we're going to try them with, so bear with me. I'm just doing all these experiments so that you guys don't have to, so you guys just know what you can do with them without, you know, wasting time and materials figuring it out. So the other thing I actually wanted to try with these was to see how well they erase. Let's try this one. Let's do a light layer and then a dark layer here. Let's see. And I always do a light layer and a dark layer because they do behave differently in light versus dark applications. Okay, that did not erase super well, and that certainly did not either. Now you can use an eraser, I guess, to lighten them up, but you're not really gonna have very good results with just trying. I'm pressing really hard. You're not gonna have great results just trying to erase them, but you can get a lighter sort of effect if you want, if you put too much down and you wanna take some of the color back. Oh, gave that eraser a workout. Okay, so that one's kind of dry. Oh, it's still not that dry. Let's give it a few more minutes, actually. Actually, you know what? It's dry over here where we used it as a watercolor. So let's try it over here. Yeah, see, the pencil goes just fine over them, even the thicker areas. Oh, the Prismacolor tips do tend to break. But anyways, yeah. So over the watercolor areas, even the darker application watercolor areas, the pencil goes just fine. So again, if you want to layer them, if you want to layer colored pencils over them, I would do that only where they're diluted. Where they're not diluted, I would not use colored pencils over them. That's not going to work well. That using them over things. Let's see how they go over colored pencil. Oh, we already did that. We did the colored pencil. Now, let's see how they go over gouache. I have regular gouache and I have acrylic gouache. And then, you know what? Why don't we move into, we have different acrylic paints. Okay, so now we're working on layering the Caran D'Ache over various mediums. So let me take this nice bright green and see how it goes over the acrylic gouache. Perfectly well. Let's take the white. You can even see the white. Let's take the pink. Okay, so no issues going over acrylic gouache. Regular gouache, also no issues. These are both Tombows. No issues there. Actually a great combo. These now over Posca. This is acrylic ink, and you can't really see it well, but it's going over it perfectly fine. And then we have Pitt Artist Pen, which is basically like Tombows, but they are light fast, whereas Tombows are not. And then this is watercolor. Perfectly well. So as you can see, these are a great addition to layering over other media. Okay, and some more experiments on layering Neocolor over other things. Let's get these two. And let's do the pink again. So this is the Liquitex Basics, and they're a relatively matte acrylic. And this is the Golden Fluid, which is also a somewhat matte because they're like the fluid colors are a little bit more matte. So that goes over perfectly well. No issues with layering. Now I have the Meeden heavy body, and then I have the Liquitex heavy body. These are glossier paints because they're heavy body. So when paint is glossy, it's more sleek and it's harder to layer things over it, like pencils and Neocolor. So let's see how this does. And it's doing perfectly well, even over the glossy heavy body paint. So pencils would do pretty well with these two. Pencils would have a harder time with these two paints, but the Neocolors are doing just fine with it, because they're more like, they do behave more like oil pastels. Okay, so I think that's good enough. We've done enough of layering. Now the last thing that I wanted to do was mix Neocolors with acrylics, watercolors, and soft pastels, and see how that goes. So we want to see how well we can also layer acrylics over it. You wouldn't normally want to do this because then the acrylics don't adhere as well, but it is something you can do. That's a little bit of golden high flow acrylics, so they're very watery and liquidy. So if you mix that in, then you're basically just tinting the paint with the Neocolor, and you get like a bluish, you can see that. You get sort of a bluish paint as a result. And then I also have this marker that I made. If you don't want to mix it in, you can just kind of like, if you just sort of go like that, you can kind of, you can even blend it in. So yeah, so you can kind of layer acrylics over them, but then it basically mixes into them. Building on that, the next thing is mixing Neocolor with other mediums, like blending them in together. So let's see, let's do a bunch of white and see what happens if we mix a little bit of this acrylic ink into it. And there you go, you get acrylic ink mixed in with that blue color. So now you have a much lighter sort of pale blue. The other option is we have watercolors, and you can mix them in with watercolors as well. Let's say we mixed in blue, we had some blue layered in, and then we wanted to add watercolor to it. And again, it just mixes in. And you get this pretty grayish blue color. This is plain gray. Now I have a grayish blue because I mixed them together. What else can we mix them with? Let's try them with soft pastels, because you can dilute soft pastels with water as well. I have some Schmincke soft pastels over here. Let's layer some white over them. So here's how it looks when it's dry. And we're gonna try it wet as well. Let's see what happens if we dilute the soft pastel on its own. Okay, we get that pretty color. And let's see what happens if we dilute the part that we had mixed them. Get like a pale pink, because now they're blending together. So you can mix them with soft pastels. So let's say I had, you know, some acrylic paint, and then I wanted to color it something else, I could mix it in. These are watercolor pencils. Blend these colors together. I'm applying a light layer. And then let's say we wanted to do kind of a greenish tinge over here. Let's see how they blend together and what happens. And they blend together perfectly, actually. I mean, they're basically the same thing, just these are much softer. Get a really pretty lilac. Look at that. Just a perfect blend of the blue with that pink. Really pretty blue. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I think that's about it in terms of what I wanted to show you guys in terms of what you could do with the Neocolors. Okay, so just to review, Neocolors over different types of acrylics, more matte acrylics and then more glossy acrylics, no issues. Neocolor blended in with fluid acrylics. And basically, it doesn't have to be fluid acrylics, it could be any acrylics. Once you add the water, they blend in together perfectly and create a whole new color. This is blended in with watercolors. It worked perfectly. We got a nice new color. This is blended in with soft pastels. This is the soft pastel on its own, and this is blended in with Neocolor II white. And this is blended in with the watercolor pencils. Again, we got brand new, very pretty colors. This is Neocolor II on its own. This is, you know, when we did the wet into wet and dry into wet and wet into dry. This is using it to cover big areas and then just blending with our fingers or a blending stump. And this is Neocolor II's diluted with water and then using colored pencil over them. And then here we have Neocolor II's with oil pastels over them, and then Neocolor II's over colored pencil, Neocolor II's over acrylic gouache, regular gouache, Tombows, Poscas, acrylic ink, Pitt Artist pen, and watercolor. And I didn't use regular ink. I do have regular ink, but I didn't use it, but I can tell you that it would work perfectly well. It would be pretty much the same as how it would go over watercolor. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of go over all the different things you can do with your Neocolors, and oh, that's okay. All the different things you can do with them. So you don't need this big set, obviously. Some colors are used more than others. You can just pick out a few colors to start with, play around with them, see how you like it. So again, this is just a great tool and a great product to use with other mediums or completely on their own. And the other thing I was going to do was show you guys some ways that I have used them. As I've said, I use this mostly in sketchbooks, and I went through and I found some pages where I've used them so I can show you. Here I used Neocolor II's for the background, and it's got like a waxy sort of texture, but again, I don't have anything protective here, and it's staying put, it's not doing anything, and you can see how you can get like a really kind of cool effect. It's blended, but it's also textured because you can still see the lines, so it's kind of cool that way. Same thing here, again, just used it for the background in the same kind of technique. Again here, mostly for the background and along with colored pencils for more detail. So you can see how easy it is to combine with other mediums. Again here, mostly for the background, maybe a little bit on the face, but probably mostly colored pencil here. So I do use them a lot in combination with colored pencil because, like I said, I don't sharpen them because I don't want to waste them. So here, you know, for some brighter sort of touches here and there, because they do come out really nice and bright without too much effort. Here, again, you get like a really nice, see, it's kind of glossy almost because of the waxy texture, but it's a really pretty, like soft blended look, which I love. It's got a very pastel look, like either a soft or an oil pastel, without all the like complications that come with using soft and oil pastels. So that's that one. Then over here, I used it, I think, pretty much on its own. Maybe I used a little bit of gouache underneath or watercolor underneath, but mostly I just used the Neocolor II's. There we go. To make a quick landscape. They're great for making landscapes because you can, again, blend them in really well. Here, it's a really big bird. I used all Neocolor II's, but I did put acrylics over it, so to kind of tone it down and give it even more texture. So if you can see that, it's got like Like right there, you can see the texture that layering acrylic over them gives it. So it's, and then over here, so it kind of makes it lighter if you use, you know, like let's say a buff titanium acrylic over it. And I think I used probably the marker that I had filled. So it just gives it a really cool texture. Gives it like a very painterly sort of look. I did use it a lot in this one. Again, a landscape, like I said, I like doing landscapes with it because it's really quick. It makes it go really fast. You can just take a few colors out, go blend it a little bit or not. Like some of it's blended, some of it's not really blended, but you know, because some of it's blended and then other areas are not very blended, you get a lot more texture too. So it's a great way to add texture and do a very quick sketch. It's just a protective film. Here I used it for the background and these cherries, and then I layered some acrylics over them, like in combination with them, and that works great. And then you can just kind of go in and add some details here and there with them. Over here too, it's mostly Neocolor. I think out of all the mediums I have, the Neocolor IIs might be the fastest way to add color to a page. That's why I use them so much in the sketchbook. And you don't have to dilute them with water. So if you have a sketchbook that doesn't have paper that's great for water medium, then these are great for that. Here too, get like a very blended look. You can do darker colors, but because they're very good at layering, you can do darker and then add lighter on top. Or you can start with lighter and then blend into the dark. You can go either way. With acrylics, you would start with darks and then layer white on top. And with watercolors, you start with, you know, the lighter and then you kind of add darks here and there and you try to preserve the white. But the Neocolors, you can go either way. You can start with dark and go into light, or start with light and go into dark. So they're very user-friendly and versatile. More of that here. Just again, in a mixed media sort of way. More of that here. Again, you get that kind of blended sort of background look, but still with texture. This is the kind of stuff that would be hard to get from oil pastels because you don't get as much texture with oil pastels. And it would be hard to do it with pencils because you don't get like the same kind of pastel looking result from them. And this is probably some pencil and then Neocolor as well. And this is pencil and Neocolor. And here too, it's pencil and Neocolor. They're very good too. Like, see, I like that effect that you get. Like, it's really pretty. The colors are pretty. Let me try to focus it. Like, the colors are pretty and the effects are pretty. Here too, same thing. Here again, pencils and Neocolors IIs for background. So again, pencils for the actual drawing, but then Neocolor IIs for the background. They're like my favorite thing to use for backgrounds. And here is Neocolor IIs, but layered over regular gouache. So the layer is a hot sort of magenta gouache, and then this is Neocolor II layered over them. So you can kind of see it a little bit peeking through here and there, but at the same time it covers it pretty well, like over here. This is the bigger book. This is again using it in combination with colored pencils and regular pencils. Again, mostly for background. Maybe a little bit for the girl's face. Again, this is layered over acrylic paint, and it goes over acrylic paint really well, and you can get either the blended look if you blend them in here, or you can just kind of leave them as is if you want some of the background color to show through and not blend them in as much. See, this is blended, and then here it's unblended. So you get a lot of variation and texture, so it's, yeah, like I just really like them. Here I use Poscas and colored pencils and acrylics and Neocolor II to get that really pretty sky. And because you can like layer different colors together, you can get a lot of color variability and interest. This is over acrylics, where I just, you know, kind of, you can go in, and because they go well over acrylics, you can add those details later when you're done with the whole painting. Here again, you know, it would take a lot to layer such a light color over a dark acrylic background. So that's why I use the Neocolors too, because you can just go in with, and one layer covers it. Like, I don't have to do multiple layers to get that look. Here's this whole page is done with them. And I used them because I knew specifically that they would be the fastest way to fill in a large space. And just go in and literally, like if you need to color something in, they are the fastest way to do it. Pencils take forever. Water medium, even you have to keep diluting the paint. Like these, you just go in dry and just boom, 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 and then your paper doesn't buckle because you're not using water. Same thing here, except here I used pencils for the girl, because for the girl face and neck, because I wanted to have more detail there, but the rest of it is Neocolor II. And here I used this acrylic marker that I made of like beige paint over top of it, and then you get a really cool effect that way. And super quick and easy, and you can just kind of take like a few different colors and then just scribble them in, and then they kind of blend into each other. You don't even have to blend them in, they just blend into each other. Same thing here. Colored pencils for girl face, and Neocolor II for pretty much the rest of it, maybe a little bit of colored pencil here and there. So they're just a great tool to use with like other mediums that you already have, especially if you're a mixed media artist or you like mixed media. That's, you know, they're just a great addition. And you know what, since this page is ruined already anyways, I just wanted to show you what I was talking about with doing a really quick fruit, just to kind of demonstrate. So let's say we have a pear, you know, so let's pretend that's a pear. And I want to make it very artsy looking with different colors in it and all that. And let's say I wanted some green, wait, what colors are pears? Some green, like a brown. So I would take multiple colors and just kind of like, let's see, I want some yellow here, and then put some yellow. And as you're painting, they kind of, you can see they're like blending into each other. And you can use lighter colors over darker colors to help them blend. And you can use it, you know, like light pressure or hard pressure, depending on, you know, what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, and so I don't know how long that took, but basically, and then you Let's say you create a bit of a shadow. Let's say we wanted to blend that. We can just blend that with a finger if we want. Okay, and there you go. How long did that take? 2 minutes? 1 minute? You know what? I'll show you guys. So like we said before, one way to layer them is to do that and then blend them together, right? And the other way is if we do that here and then I go right into it, it blends into each other and they blend really well and they will create new colors. So if I want them, you kind of can use them as pastels. If you want to blend them in this way, you can use a thicker layer. And if you want to just blend them in together like that with smudging, then you would use a lighter layer so you can like blend them in together. I think that's probably all I wanted to say on this topic. I hope you guys found it helpful and that you enjoyed this video. And again, thank you so much for subscribing, for commenting, and for liking my videos. I love reading all the comments, so thank you guys. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.